I think it's safe to say that the Knicks have had more than their fair share of disappointment and at times downright clownery. From missing out on top-end prospects in the lottery, to getting snubbed by big-time free agents, to having James Dolan as their owner, the Knicks just stayed taking L's on a number of fronts. And going into this season, they were projected to continue to languish in their rebuild, with no signs of exit. Yet continuing the trend of surprises in this 2021 NBA season, they have raced out to a 5-3 start, one full game better than the Nets, at least at the time of this recording. Every other over 500 NBA team features returning all-stars or clearly ascended go-to scorers, or threw the bag in free agency, or swung massive trades in the offseason, or all of the above even. All New York did this winter was elevate some unproven young dudes, add some subpar vets, and hire Thibs. And those moves, at least in the early season, have proven enough to make New York Knicks basketball fun and exciting once again. If you end up liking this video and you want to see more basketball content from me, consider liking and commenting your thoughts down below. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. Any 180 flip like this has to start at the top of coaching. Coach Thibs, his staff, and culture deserve a huge amount of credit for New York's performance thus far. The rest of the reasons on this list are in no small part thanks to his coaching ability and coaching awareness. To be honest, Thibs was kind of underrated going into this season. His value as a coach was pretty diminished since his stint in Minnesota, but if you look through his career, mostly with Chicago, you'll see a pretty storied pedigree of developing talent and instilling a gritty team-first culture. From his development of the youngest MVP in league history in D Rose, to a 30th pick turned star in Jimmy G, and even Joakim Noah. I'll remember him? Defensive anchor of an overall defensively sound team. There are many more examples littered throughout his Chicago tenure. The ones I quickly mentioned are just the cream of the crop. Tried to bring that same energy to Minnesota, didn't work out so well, but in New York, it looks to be working like a charm. Every player on the roster is maximizing their potential at once, at the same time playing for each other, putting their team culture first. Under his tutelage, they are the 7th best defensive team in the league. Even if that feat does not survive through the end of the season, finishing in the top half is already a major accomplishment. They have managed to scrape out wins against quality teams by flying in the rotations and putting in effort to make each and every possession tough. Overall, they're just playing with a lot of heart. In 5 wins this year, the Knicks have already came back twice, after trailing by as much as 18 against the Jazz and 15 against the Hawks. Those are deficits that would have sunk previous iterations of this team, especially against teams that are postseason locks. But not this year. Thibs has instilled a never say die mentality, and I'm loving it. I'm loving every second of it. Players that we'll touch on later, such as Julius Randle, has put aside the my stats first mentality that has plagued his career and started playing for the team. A lot of it due to his reverence and respect for Thibs' pedigree as a successful coach. Actually, let's talk about Julius Randle right now. Besides Coach Thibs, Randle's maturity on the floor is a major reason why the Knicks as a team have been progressing. Been public enemy number 1 for a while now, with his constant attempts at proving he can be New York's number 1 option last season, flamed out in a hail of spinning no-chance drives into triple coverage, time and time again. But through 2 weeks under Thibs, he has produced like a bona fide all-star, averaging 22 points, 11 rebounds, and an eye-popping 7.5 assists per game. All career highs, especially that last one. All while shooting 51% from the field and 41% from three-point land. The crazy thing about this, he's doing the same amount of isolations as he did last year. The only difference being that he's using those ISOs more in transition and making much quicker team-first decisions when an ISO sets. Ironically enough, his team mentality has made him look like a great individual player. He's averaging nearly as many potential assists per game as Ben Simmons and LeBron James. He's also set up nearly as many three-pointers as Westbrook and LeBron. Elfrid Payton is that guy on 2K. Alright, I don't know what I was trying to say there, but Payton is another one of these dudes who is considered damaged good by his prior teams. Up until this point has also performed poorly for the Knicks. Shot creation had to come from somewhere on this roster, and this season Payton has made a living as one of the team's top scorers and most effective drivers. After a very poor first 2 games, he's averaged over 18 points per game since, bailing out the Knicks on a number of occasions by speeding into the paint and putting up one of his patented floaters. New York needs this consistent play out of him in order to keep their playoff hopes alive, unless a certain guy takes that next jump in his rookie season. We'll talk more about team IQ later. Overall though, the Knicks have been supplemented very well by their veterans. For the first few games, it was Alec Burke putting up 20 bombs at one of the most efficient clips in the league. Then it was my boy Austin Rivers returning to the fold, outright beating the Jazz nearly single-handedly in crunch time. Nerlens Noel, when healthy, has been a useful cog off the bench, especially on the boards and defensively. These signings didn't grab the national spotlight, but they've bought into Coach Thibs' philosophy and provided the team with stability and experience. Turns out when you're bad for a stretch of time, you'll end up having a number of high upside players. The Knicks found themselves with a young core that has been progressing nicely. Talent was never really a question for Robinson, but through 2 years he's had trouble earning the starting center role due to his foul troubles and general mental blanks that comes with having a very young athlete going through growing pains. All of that seemed to have disappeared more or less. Robinson has been a consistent presence in the paint, fouling at a career low 3.7 per 36 minute rate. Now he still has a long way to go, but finally being able to make a nightly impact offensively has been huge. Outside of Robinson, you have guys like RJ Barrett. He isn't scoring as well or as efficiently, but his game has evolved everywhere else. He's become a bigger force on playmaking, on the boards, and defensively. Then you get Immanuel Quickley, who has quickly emerged as yet another 2020 draft steal. Almost undoubtedly has the claim to the best name in the class, injecting boundless energy and hustle every minute he plays on the court. IQ has proved to be invaluable to their rotation. His joyful yet skillful passing, added with a pair of his attentive defense and efficient scoring, gave them the spark needed to come back against teams like the Hawks. He just picked his spots beautifully both offensively and defensively, never forcing anything, going with the flow of the game, but at the same time often dictating the pace of the game itself. It will not be surprising at all to see him continue his ascension and end his rookie season as a starter for the New York Knicks. Kevin Knox minutes has also been dependable, helping space the floor. There's literally nothing to say about Toppin, who has only played 1 game so far, but he's also a nice young piece for them going forward. And lastly, the Knicks have been good thanks to a little luck finally going their way. The Knicks are allowing one of the highest 3-point attempts in the league, but their opponents are only knocking down around 30% of them, lowest in the NBA. Although that is the scheme that Thibs has implemented, paint first mentality where they will often go to drop coverages on pick and roll, living time and time again with 3-point shot attempts. Very similar to what the Milwaukee Bucks did for the past couple of seasons, and they consistently finish as one of the best defensive teams in the league. Even with the Bucks, their opponents were not consistently shooting this bad. Thibs cannot continue to rely on teams to miss wide open shots on a nightly basis. It's very likely that this will not continue through the season. It's very likely that Randle will not continue to put up Wilt and Jokic numbers, that the opposing offenses will start hitting their threes. The team as a whole will just cool down from this immense hot streak. A month from now, we might look at the Knicks the same way we did 2 weeks ago, as a team with intriguing young pieces, still very much in the early stages of a rebuild. Now though, there's something much more than that. They're actually fun to watch, bringing joy to New York basketball. And who are we to deny that happiness to New York basketball fans? My verdict is they've been through a lot and they deserve this. And that is all I have for y'all today. If you like this video and you want to see more basketball content from me, consider liking and commenting down something below. And until next time, stay safe.